What's going on YouTube Ferocity? I hope you guys are doing well. Does MW3 get too much hate? Let's be honest here. MW3 is not a bad game. There are aspects to this game that are really well thought out, and honestly are improvements over its predecessors. Both Call of Duty Vanguard and MW2 seem to take some weird turns that MW3 corrected. The one that I can just think of off the top of my head from MW2 to MW3 is the way they just return back to basics with the perk system, but also put their own spin on it. Is it my favorite? No. But is it an improvement? 100%. And it's a little different than what we've seen in other games. It still boggles my mind why MW2 ever thought it was a good idea to have time release perks. It was such a weird concept. Now, if we want to talk about performance-based perks, we've talked about the Specialist perk package before, and honestly, it deserves to return in some fashion in MW3, not just Warzone. But that's not what we're discussing today. What we're discussing today is whether or not MW3 gets too much hate. Because it doesn't take long if you go searching on social media to find some negativity surrounding this game. But it's not the same type of negativity that Call of Duty used to receive. Back during the MW2 Black Ops 1 era, it was always hatred towards Call of Duty and its players. That was where a lot of the Call of Duty hate was. Sure, there were criticisms of the game, people were critical of what was going on behind the scenes, but it was never as amplified as it is now. Obviously, the criticism is on a larger scale because there's a lot of people that are disappointed and upset with the current trajectory of Call of Duty, the current direction that Activision's taking it in. But when we look at Call of Duty from an outsider's perspective, it doesn't seem to have that same type of hatred levied towards it from the rest of the gaming community. Back in 2009, 2010, 2011, if you weren't playing Call of Duty, there was this air of snobbiness that you held. You kind of had this attitude towards people that played Call of Duty and the community that fostered from Call of Duty, that you were kind of better than them because you were playing real video games and Call of Duty wasn't a real video game. And that was the type of hate that was levied towards it back then. And at some point in time that shifted. People moved away from Call of Duty. That type of hipster attitude changed as well, and probably for the better too, because that was pretty toxic back then. But instead of the toxicity coming from the outside, all of it comes from the inside now. Call of Duty is an extremely toxic community. The difference between Call of Duty now and Call of Duty 10 years ago is the community smaller. Call it what you will. The community is smaller today than what it was in 2014. I know that there are people that believe it's a bigger community now. It's not. It's not. You don't have the same number of players playing for as long. It's just not the same community as it once was. And the toxicity that existed back in 2014 was definitely more amplified than it is now. I mean, yes, there are people that go and contact developers directly, send them death threats, send them whatever, which is completely heinous and in no way, shape, or form do I condone, but it's on a smaller scale than what it used to be. I remember back during the Black Ops 3 era when they nerfed a weapon and David Vonderhaar just got tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet being told he was a loser, getting threatened to be killed, all these crazy things, because the Call of Duty community used to be so flippin' toxic. And I just don't get that same sense now. It seems now whenever the game delivers a new content update, whenever the game delivers anything change related, it's not so much toxicity being levied at the developers, it's more criticism. I'm sure there are still those fringes of players that decide it's okay to send death threats towards people. Never understood that. Don't know why you think you're an edgelord or cool to do that. But that's neither here nor there. Now it's a lot of criticism. It's why did you do this? Who thought this was a good idea? And the difference between that type of hatred is I don't think the hatred of the criticism comes from a place of actual hatred of the developers or of the game or anything like that. Instead, it comes from a place of love. It comes from a place of loyalty to the franchise and wanting to see the game get better. Whereas back when the game was much more popular than it is today and much more hated than it is today, a lot of that came from a much more toxic place. A place of true hatred towards Call of Duty, a place of true hatred towards the developers. So overall, does MW3 get too much hate? Not in comparison to its older titles. Not by a landslide. Like, it is way different now than it used to be. And you might disagree with me, but honestly, this community is pretty tame compared to where Call of Duty once was, and compared to some other communities on the internet. But let's dive a little bit deeper into a vacuum that is just MW3. Pretend there's no other Call of Duty games that existed before it, and pretend that this is the first time we had a Call of Duty game. Does the community levy a bunch of hate to this game? Unwarranted hate? I don't think so. And I don't think it's a very hated game at all from this community. I think the community generally likes this game. They just have some criticisms about some of the key components of it. Some areas where they're a little disappointed with the overall performance of the game. I mean, we've talked about it endlessly here on this channel. It'd be great if cheaters weren't such a big deal. It'd be fantastic if the servers were better. It'd be amazing if they could fix the spawns. If skill-based matchmaking was removed, wouldn't that be nice? And this is what the community is talking about. Instead of having uninhibited hatred towards the developers, having unwarranted hate towards a title just because you don't play it. It's a different type of negativity that's being levied at Call of Duty these days. And I think at the end of the day, what you're seeing now is a lot more constructive criticism, a lot more hope from the community, instead of just like pure negativity. Pure, this game sucks, this game's gonna go nowhere. Like every video I make, even if it's negative in a sense, the goal is to learn something positive from it and take some positive points from it and say, this is what the goal is. And I think a lot of people, when they talk about this game, whether it's on Reddit, Twitter, or here on YouTube, the goal is always to say, hey, like, this is something I found out. It'd be sure nice if it was resolved, improved, because that's what the player base wants. That's what the player base is hopeful of. We all want a better game. We all want a more improved ecosystem. That's what this game needs. And I don't think that the game in any way, shape, or form is suffering from toxicity now. I just don't. Now, of course, some of the toxicity has gone away because less and less people are in game chat, less and less people are using microphones, and those that do have to follow the very strict terms and services of Activision now, and that has caused the game to be a little bit less toxic. But this isn't a video about toxicity necessarily. It's more about gauging the feeling from the community. Because there were Call of Duty titles that the community absolutely hated. I can think of Vanguard as one of them. Hated game. Advanced Warfare was probably the most polarizing game we've ever seen. Infinite Warfare, that was a hated Call of Duty game. And when I compare MW3 to those games, I don't see hatred. I see hope, positivity, and criticism. But criticism in the hopes of the game improving. Criticism in the hopes of a better game on the horizon. And that's what we can take away from this year. Is the hope for Call of Duty, the hope for MW3, is that Activision and its developer Treyarch can learn from this game the same way that Sledgehammer learned from Infinity Ward and improve Call of Duty for 2024-2025. Because by the sounds of it, it's going to be back-to-back Black Ops titles, and oh boy, if those hit, I don't even want to know what that's going to mean for Call of Duty. All good things, all positive things. But then, of course, there's also the idea of what happens if it doesn't. Well, that's why these companies, these developers need to learn from the mistakes of their predecessors, improve the game, and just try to make as good of an experience as they possibly can. Good strides have been made with MW3. We need to continue that momentum and power through into 2024. But yeah, that's kind of my video for today. I thought it was just a different type of idea to look at this franchise from not only where it used to be to where it is now, but just in a vacuum. Because I see negativity all the time for this game, and I don't think it's the same type of negativity as what we used to see. A lot more people just want to see Call of Duty improve instead of Call of Duty die off. And I'm definitely one of those people. So that's it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this down below in that comment section. Am I off my rocker? Am I an idiot? I don't know. Let me know with a comment down below. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you want to see more videos from me, please hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.